Escape from Witch Doctor Mountain by Paul Beck. Part 1. "Is that a vortex?" asked Viv. She was staring at the spiral petroglyph. The unwinding circle had been delicately chiselled into the black rock. The colour of the stone underneath contrasted strongly. It was blood-red sandstone. At the other end of the rock face, another swirl unspun. The setting sun cast shadows into the two swirls. The whole cliff face was decorated. The petroglyphs appeared as the sun sank lower. The more she looked, the more she saw. "Is it paint, Dad?" asked Sarah, curiously. Her father shook his head. "See how the smooth rock is black? That's called desert varnish. It takes 2,000 years to turn black like that. What they do is delicately chip the top layer off. It makes the red layer underneath visible." A creek bubbled and shimmered at their feet. Across the creek, the cliffs loomed. The air smelled of Arizona wildflowers. It was as sweet as the can of Red Bull Viv held in her hand. It hurt her teeth. "That swirl! It looks like a whirlpool," whispered Sarah to herself. "It's creepy. What about that white thing? That square thing with the antlers? A buffalo?" asked Viv. "Now, that I'm not sure of," said Mr. Stevens curiously. "I've never seen anything that white, or anything that square. It could be graffiti. Someone with a can of spray paint, but I don't see any other graffiti." His voice trailed off. "I don't understand how it can be so white. Maybe a rock layer underneath? Or some lichen? Some fungus? Some moss? Looks pretty scary though, doesn't it?" "Looks like an alien in a spacesuit," said Viv. "Those aren't horns. They're antennas for communication." "You have a good imagination," laughed Mr. Stevens. "Native peoples hunted here thousands of years ago. They left those petroglyphs for people to know what was here. Look over at that flat section of rock there. What do you see?" "Holes?" asked Viv. "Exactly. Those are grinding marks. People have spent thousands of years grinding food in those holes. Maybe pods from the ancestors of these mesquite trees right here. People have been standing here for thousands of years." Viv squinted into the sun. It was low on the horizon. It was hot on her face. The trees were gnarled and twisted. They looked tough. They looked like they had been there a long time. They were reaching for something. Their shadows stretched across the shimmering creek to the cliff face. "It's getting late. The shadows are getting long. Let's head back to the car," said Mr. Stevens. "We still have a few thousand feet in altitude to drive." They walked back to the car. Viv could feel the long, soft grass brush against her shins. Animal tracks in the soft sand wandered up the creek bed. "Where are all the cactuses?" she asked. The desert floor had towering forests of saguaro cacti. It looked like something out of a dinosaur movie. It had taken an hour of driving to come up from the desert floor. "Those saguaros only grow at certain elevations. We're moving up in altitude and the vegetation is changing. We'll be at 10,000 feet soon. Big pine trees will be up there. Much cooler. These are summer hunting and gathering grounds. The people that lived here came here to cool off." Viv pointed to a flat section of ground. There was a mound on two sides. "Is that a wall?" "Could be. You have a good eye. That's a flat section. Could have been a house, maybe a ball court. I'm surprised more of this place hasn't been excavated." Shadows crossed the deserted trail. "It's creepy here. Let's get back to the car." The trail crisscrossed the creek. Something shiny in the water caught Sarah's eye. She bent down to get a closer look. The flash was coming from a slick, black rock. She stuck her hand under the shallow running water. She scooped up a handful of wet, fine gravel. The pain was intense and immediate. "Ouch!" she shouted. The rest of the family stopped and turned towards her. The edge of the stone was razor sharp. It had easily drawn blood. Are you okay? Mr. Stephen appeared at her side. Baby Anthony was on his back. This rock cut me, said Sarah incredulously. She had not dropped it. She held out her hand. It was covered in a mixture of blood, water, and sand. The black stone glistened. Sarah, that's not a rock, said Mr. Stevens quietly. That's a knife. A knife made of black obsidian volcanic glass. Sarah, this is an incredible find. Congratulations. This belongs in a museum. So, what about my hand? She said indignantly. Mr. Stevens gently inspected her hand. It's not a deep cut, and it's clean. It'll stop bleeding in a few minutes. We can put a bandage on when we get to the car. Her father chuckled. Sarah relaxed. I know scientists that work their whole lives for a find like this. It's worth a cut. You're going to be famous when we show this around. Viv, can you please do a slow video of this spot? Pan around with the camera so we know exactly where we found it. On it, said Viv, and took out her cell phone. They walked back to the car. How about that, girls? Today we saw something from the past, and in another hour, we'll see the future. Wow, Dad, you are such a nerd. Thanks, Viv. So are you. It wasn't a compliment. Yes, it was. It's the nerds that make things happen these days. Not guys like Sarah's pretty boy boyfriend. What's his name? With the nice smile and the fancy hair. The one she's always texting. Dad, shouted Sarah indignantly. He is not my boyfriend. Whatever. Why does he always come around the house then? Asked Viv. He needs help with his math. That guy couldn't do math if his life depended on it, said Viv with a snark. Meow, said the father. You're just jealous, said Sarah. You're a tomboy. Some things are too sophisticated for you. He's as sophisticated as an old shoe. We have a nice friendship. You're still young. You'll understand someday. I'm only 2 years younger than you, and guys can't be friends with girls. Maybe you can't. Like I said, it's sophisticated. You are good at Mario Kart and motocross. You are athletic. I'm sophisticated. Their father chuckled. It's a good mix, he said. All right, binary ladies. Let's load up the car. We have an hour before the ISS flyby. The what? Said Viv. See? Exactly what I was saying, said Sarah. ISS stands for International Space Station. We've seen it before. You just don't remember. Too much sports is rotting your brain. Dad has an app. It's part of the nerd package. Mr. Stevens reached into his pocket for the car keys. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped across the parking lot. Whoa, what's this? Exclaimed Mr. Stevens. Vivian's face stung from the flying dirt and dust. She put her hands up to protect her eyes. Where did this come from? She shouted above the wind. Is this a tornado? Shouted Sarah. This is crazy! Dad, open the car! He was standing by the driver's side front door. It's open! Shouted their dad. Let's go! They could barely hear him above the noise of the wind. Sarah pulled on the door handle. The wind ripped the handle out of her hand. The door smashed with a bang into the frame of the baby backpack. It bounced on its hinges. Careful! Let's get baby Anthony in the car. Hold that door, Viv. This is crazy. He strapped the baby backpack into the rear seat. Get in there, Viv. She ran around to the front passenger seat. She was careful when she opened the door. She could not get it shut. The car was swaying side to side in the wind. I can't get it shut, Dad. I'll get it. He shielded his face and ran to the other side of the car. Watch your fingers, he shouted over the wind. He pressed his hip into the open door. She leaned away. She heard her dad grunt. The door closed with a loud bang. It slammed shut. Viv just had time to pull her fingers away from the crack of the door. The dirt stung her eyes. Leaves and small branches flew over the hood of the car. The air smelled burnt. Viv could taste burnt oatmeal in the wind. The fuzz on her arms was standing straight up. Mr. Stevens sat in the driver's seat. "Static electricity," he said excitedly. "Wind is fast. The dust is charging the air. Do you smell it?" "Smells burnt," said Sarah. "Very strange for such a clear day. Let's get moving." The road was a series of sharp switchbacks. Sometimes the sky would disappear under a canopy of pine trees. Viv felt herself take a deep breath. The car wheezed. "We're gaining altitude," said their father. Colossal white domes appeared intermittently on rocky outcrops. They winked in and out of view through the looming trees. "What are those big white buildings?" asked Sarah. "Old telescope domes. This place was a big observatory in the 1950s. Decommissioned, abandoned. The shells are still here." A hard left corner had a pullout. Gravel crunched under the tyres as they stopped. Sometimes the air smelled of ash. Burnt pine trees lined the ridge. They looked like skeletons against the fading sky. The sky was open and clear. "This is a good spot," said Mr. Stevens. He strapped baby Anthony onto his back. He checked his large cell phone. "We are right on time. 20 seconds. This app is very accurate. Keep your eyes open. The app will beep the last 10 seconds. He held his large cell phone up to the horizon. The gyroscope in the phone lined up the stars in the sky perfectly with the stars on the screen. Venus hung low and bright on the horizon. "The space station should be coming up over the horizon, right over there." The app let out 10 beeps. Viv found herself holding her breath. She could hear her heartbeat. "There!" shouted Viv. She pointed straight ahead, low on the horizon. "Wow! I've never seen it so bright." "Great view here, Dad. Good call," said Sarah breathlessly. The brightest object in the sky broke from behind light clouds and twinkled in the sky. It sailed upwards from the horizon. It headed straight over their heads. "It's so fast," said Sarah. 4.7 miles per second. That's 120,500 miles per hour. Orbits the Earth every 90 minutes. 15 orbits a day. "I reiterate, Dad, you are a nerd," laughed Sarah. "What's the altitude?" asked Viv. "Good question," said Mr. Stevens. 227 nautical miles. Straight up. Low Earth orbit. In nautical miles? 1.15 miles. So that's 250 miles. "Ugh, I'm gonna puke," said Sarah. "How many people on board?" asked Viv curiously. 6. "Want to go?" "Sure," she said. "Tonight?" "We'll probably have to book in advance," laughed her father. "Fastest flight time up there was 6 hours, but sometimes it can take 3 to 4 days." "It's brighter than an airplane," Sarah said hoarsely. She squeezed the words out through her craned neck. "Magnitude -4 this evening," said their dad. "I've never seen it so bright. The brightest star in the sky is rated at magnitude 1. That's Sirius, the dog star. You can see it in summer. The full moon is magnitude -13. The faintest star is magnitude 6. "It's brighter than an airplane." "It's a lot bigger too. About the size of a football field when the solar panels are deployed. Living quarters are about the size of a 6-bedroom house. 450 tons. That's like 450 cars flying around the Earth." Viv was feeling the cramp in her neck from staring almost straight up. The space station must have passed in back of a wisp of cloud. It blinked off. Then it was back, brighter than any star. It twinkled again. Then it shimmered. It wiggled. It looked as if it were passing through wavy water. Then it disappeared again. "Hey, where did it go again?" she said. "That's weird. No clouds up there." "It looked wavy for a second." "I saw that too. Could be atmospheric distortion. That's what makes stars twinkle. It's what gives sunsets their colour. But where did it go?" "I don't see it," their dad said, quizzically. "There it is," said Viv. "Back towards the left." It was halfway back towards the horizon. "Wow," said their dad. "That is quite an optical illusion. I would have sworn it went backwards. The atmosphere must be really playing tricks on us." "Did it just speed up?" asked Viv. "No. The speed should always be constant." In another 30 seconds, the station was on the opposite horizon. It blinked out. "Wow. That was awesome," said Viv, breathlessly. "Thanks, Dad." "My pleasure, kiddo." Sarah turned back towards the direction of the setting sun. A reddish glow hung in the sky. It was deathly quiet. She thought she could smell the burnt toast smell of the dust devil from the lower parking. "Should we watch the sun go down?" she asked. "The sunset?" said her dad, quizzically. "The sun went down half an hour ago. There shouldn't be any—" His eyes narrowed as he looked at the horizon in the direction of the sunset. A red glow hung in the sky above where the sun had gone down. He stared. Everyone stared. "Is that a forest fire?" asked Viv. "There are no forest fires burning right now. I checked this morning before we left." "But that's a cloud of smoke. It's moving upwards. It's glowing from the reflection of the flames?" asked Viv. Lateral bolts of lightning stretched out from the cloud. "It's moving fast. And against the wind," said her father, pensively. A strong gust of wind pushed Sarah's loose blonde hair across her face. "Oh, not this crazy wind again," she said. Viv looked up at one of the abandoned white telescope domes. They looked dark and menacing. It towered above them. It looked as if it were watching them. "Dad, let's get out of here. This place gives me the creeps," she said. "My thoughts exactly. Let's move." Suddenly, the air smelled burnt. Sarah was looking at the path. A white light camera flash lit up her feet. She thought it might be her imagination. "Did you guys see that light?" An ear-splitting crash of thunder cut her voice off. Baby Anthony howled. "Let's move! Let's move!" Her father's lips were forming words, but Viv could not hear them. A loud ringing sounded in her ears. She saw spots from the flash of light. She was being pushed towards the car. Her dad was fumbling in his pocket for the key fob. He stabbed at the button. The car made no response. He slipped out of Baby Anthony's harness and put him on the ground. Baby Anthony did not like this. He howled louder. They tried the car doors. They were all jammed. The key fob was not working. Another flash of white light crackled. An eerie silence was broken by her father's shout. "Put your hands over your ears!" Viv covered her ears and lowered her head. She could feel the thunder reverberate through her chest. The ground shook. She heard the crash of glass. Her father had picked up a large rock. He had hurled it at the driver's side window. A round blister of cracked glass appeared on the window, but it did not break. He threw it again. A hole appeared. He gripped the roof rack and kicked at the window. Glass showered into the car and to the ground. He reached inside the car, pulled the inside latch. Sarah was already securing Baby Anthony's backpack to the rear seat. He was screaming frantically. "No power!" shouted her dad. The wind was whipping through his hair. He ran to the back of the car. Out of the trunk, he pulled a portable battery. "Sarah, give me a hand here. Hold the hood up." The wind was ferocious. It was pushing the hood of the car down. Sarah grunted as she pushed her arms over her head. She could already feel her arms burning with the effort. Sarah, get in the driver's seat. Hit the start button when I tell you. Her father attached the portable battery to the car battery. I'll be done in 1 more second. There. Okay, Sarah, hit it. Sarah pushed the start button. The motor made gurgling sounds. The weak battery struggled to turn the motor over. Her brown hair whipping at her face, Viv looked to the horizon. The glowing red cloud was moving fast towards them. Inside the cloud, bolts of lightning crackled. Viv thought she could see faces illuminated by the flashes. Through the skeletons of burnt trees, Viv looked down the mountainside. "Dad!" she shouted in alarm. "Look!" A cloud of thick black smoke was rolling up the mountainside. The car roared to life. "Let's move!" shouted her dad over the wind. He ripped the wires of the portable battery from the main battery and ran to the driver's door. Viv let her arms relax. A gust tore the hood of the car out of her hands. It slammed shut. Her dad tossed the portable battery into the front seat and took the wheel. Viv barely had time to run and sit in the passenger seat before her dad had the car moving. He swung it onto the asphalt and accelerated around the corner down the hill. Viv caught her breath as they rounded the turn. An impenetrable wall of smoke blocked their path. Part 2. "Seatbelts!" shouted her dad. The wind was blowing debris into the cabin through the broken window. "Dad, slow down!" screamed Sarah over the wind from the back seat. "We can't see!" "I remember this section of road. It's straight. Keep your eyes open. We need to get off the mountain." The car accelerated forward, towards the wall of smoke. "What is that smell?" exclaimed Sarah. "How can there be fog and wind at the same time?" shouted Viv. "Let's get out of here. I told you guys this place gives me the creeps. Hit it, Dad." The engine revved. "Viv, I'm watching the guardrail. You look ahead." Viv squinted her eyes and peered forward. She thought she could see movement in the fog. She saw a disembodied pair of long black legs run across her field of vision from right to left. It must have been her imagination. The car accelerated. Viv looked back at baby Anthony and Sarah. Sarah saw the expression of awe on Viv's face. She turned to look out the rear window. Through the rolling smoke, they could see the silhouette of horses. The horses were running in a circle. The wall of fog had cracks in it. Through the cracks, Viv could see red cliffs. She could see blue sky. Another blinding flash of lightning made the fog suddenly disappear. The road and rocks and pine trees were no longer there. In its place was a desert vista. Viv thought she was looking at a computer screen, like she was looking into the center of a whirlpool. Saguaro cacti stretched to a blue sky. Red cliffs framed the scene. On the cliffs were large petroglyphs, swirling circles, horses, men. The large, white, square buffalo. She opened her mouth to shout. Another blinding flash of light. Another crash of thunder. She turned to look out the front window. The fog had disappeared. It was twilight. Stars twinkled overhead in the darkening sky. The only wind was the breeze coming through the open window. She turned in her seat again and looked backwards. The fog had disappeared. Pine trees, rocks. Baby Anthony was sitting peacefully in his car seat. Sarah had her mouth open in astonishment. "We're through it," said her dad. "But we have to keep moving. We need to get off this mountain." "Slow down, Dad," begged Viv. "I've seen you driving in video games. You should be used to speed. Let's get off this mountain. Keep your eyes ahead. I could use your co-pilot skills." They passed through a wooded section. It became suddenly dark. A hard right turn opened up a vista to the plain below. Silhouetted against the sky was a gnarled tree, a rock, and what appeared to be a man. Viv blinked her eyes and looked again. It was a man. He was holding a staff. He had a large jacket that hung down to his knees. No, it was not a jacket. It was some sort of cape. Silently, Viv squinted through the gathering dark as they drove closer. It was a headdress. She could distinctly see the feathers. The figure was holding a staff. "Did you see that?" asked Viv incredulously. And there was a pause. "No," said her dad. "I'm driving. I can't look around." Viv turned back to Sarah. "Sarah, take a look back. There's a—" Viv did not finish her sentence. She looked out the back window and saw an empty road. Viv stared up at the sky. There was a very bright star. Even in the moving car, Viv could tell it was the International Space Station. It was flying fast across the sky. "Dad," she said excitedly, "there's the International Space Station again." "Impossible," said her father. "It never follows the exact same orbit. The planet is spinning. The space station is moving. It'll show up again tomorrow night." "It's so bright." "Nothing is that bright. It's just a star, Viv. I need your eyes on the road." Viv kept her eyes on the bright star. It shimmered. It wiggled. It looked as if it were passing through wavy water. Then it disappeared. It disappeared again. "Viv, please," implored her dad. "I need your eyes on the road." "Is it much farther, Dad? I'm getting cold," shouted Sarah from the back seat. 1 hour. You'll have to tough it out. We've got to get off this mountain in case the storm picks up again. How's your hand?" "It's fine. Bleeding has stopped." "Okay. Let me concentrate on the road." There was still light. They went through another section of dark pines. More switchbacks. Viv could see the roadside being illuminated by flashes of lighting to the rear. There was no crash of thunder. "We must be getting away from the storm," she thought to herself. A hard right turn gave them another vista of the valley. It looked strangely familiar. Then a tree and a rock swung into view. A chill ran up her spine. The silhouette of a man was clearly visible by the tree. "This looks familiar. Dad, are you sure we're not going in circles?" shouted Sarah from the back. "I seem to remember that tree." She stopped suddenly. "Dad, there's someone standing there. Did you see that, Viv? Dad, I saw an Indian." "It's your imagination, Sarah. Please, let me concentrate on the driving." "I saw it too," said Viv. "We're going in circles." "We can't be going in circles. There's only one road down the mountain," said their father. "Now, for the 3rd time, let me drive." Viv and Sarah looked at each other in amazement. They were not going in circles. They were travelling the same stretch of road, over and over. "Something's wrong," said Viv. "How long have we been driving?" she asked Sarah. I'm not sure. An hour?" "An hour?" exclaimed Viv. "We've been driving since sundown when the International Space Station went by. It only took us an hour to get up here from the valley. How can we still be driving? What time is it?" "I don't know. My watch is not turning on. It's brand new." "Something funny is going on. Why isn't it getting dark? We've been driving down this mountain for hours. It doesn't make sense." Another flash made everyone squint their eyes. They didn't have time to cover their ears. A clap of thunder rattled the windows of the car. Her father was mouthing the words, "It must be right on top of us." But Viv could not hear over the ringing in her ears. The ringing stopped, but it was only replaced by an eerie silence. The car motor had stopped. Only the sound of the tyres on the road. Only the sound of the wind through the broken window could be heard. The car was rolling, of its own accord. Gravity was pulling it down the steep hill. They were gaining speed. "Dad, slow down!" shouted Sarah from the back seat. "I wish I could, Sarah. Brakes are out. You guys hold on. I'm going to have to scrape the cliff. Viv could see her father's white knuckles gripping the steering wheel. Oh, power steering is out. You girls hold on, he shouted. Viv, put your head down. Get away from the window. Viv saw the cliff face looming closer to her window. She threw her head to the car seat and put her hands over her face. She heard the metal of the door being torn from the passenger side of the car. The car bounced. A loud bang that was not lightning sounded. A screeching sound. Another bounce, and the car was stopped. White flashes echoed off the cliff walls. The road was empty. Her father was out of the stopped car in an instant. Flat tire, he shouted. White light flickered off the windshield. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Electrical charge again. Must have blown another fuse. They all exited the car on the driver's side. Baby Anthony was safe in his car seat. Viv heard panic in her sister's voice. Dad, she said. She was looking up the road. A sinister red-black cloud obscured the sky above them. Veins of lightning threaded through the cloud. What's that sound? What, the thunder? No, something else, said Viv. Sounds like... 200 yards up the road, a torrent of water jetted over the cliffside and crashed onto the road. Mr. Stevens ran to the back of the car and threw the bags to the ground. It was obvious he was not going to repack them. He pulled out the jack, and the next instant was on his knees, fitting it to the car frame. Viv had never seen him move so fast. Sarah, crank this jack, he shouted. Dad, I can't, she howled. My hand. I'm on it. Viv pushed her aside and cranked furiously. Get the portable battery to the front of the car, then. Her dad hauled the spare out of the trunk and rolled it to the back tyre. Check on baby Anthony. Keep cranking, Viv, until I say stop. He set to loosening the lug nuts on the flat tyre. Sarah was surprised how fast she lifted the heavy portable battery. She ran around the car and dropped it on the hood. She looked through the windshield to see baby Anthony looking at her. She could see a crease of worry on his forehead. She looked over the car. The water was getting closer. The jet had become a torrent. The water had filled the ditches and was running down the road. It was rolling watermelon-sized rocks down the street. Another jet roared over the cliff halfway between the original stream. Dad, hurry! The water is getting closer! Screamed Sarah over the sound of the torrent. Mr. Stevens already had the new wheel lined up on the lug nuts. He was twisting them tight with the tyre iron. Just one more lug nut and we are in business. Without warning, a stream of water crashed over the cliff directly above them and sprayed the car. A fist-sized rock collided with Mr. Stevens' head. Viv and Sarah looked through the spray in horror. Mr. Stevens rolled backward and lay still in the mud and the water. They ran to his side. Another wave of water landed hard on the roof of the car. The car protected the girls and their father from the weight of the water. The car, though, lurched off the jack and landed hard. The sound of wheels crunching on gravel tore their attention from their prostrate father. Sarah and Viv turned in horror to see the car already 10 paces down the road and gaining speed. Baby Anthony's car seat was visible through the rear window. Part 3. Sarah was the first to react. Viv! She screamed. Catch the car! In an instant, Viv's feet were pounding the wet pavement. She felt the spray in her face. She pumped her arms. She made a blade with her fingers and her hands to slice the air. With every breath, she moved faster. She knew she had to push it as hard as she could. The almond taste of blood was in her mouth from such a quick start. She knew she was going fast. She knew this was the most important race of her life. She was gaining on the car. Every step sent a splash of water flying. It felt ice cold on her shins. She looked up. Her heart sank. The road disappeared over the crest of a hill. If she could not catch the car within the next few seconds, it would roll down the hill with baby Anthony strapped inside. She could see the door handle at arm's length. Adrenaline kicked in. She lowered her head and pumped her arms. She had been sprinting for 100 yards. She knew she couldn't keep up this pace much longer. She wrenched the fingers of her right hand into the door handle. She felt her fingertips slide into the handle and pulled the door open. Her left hand wrapped around the window frame of the door. One last push with her left foot landed her right foot on the lower door sill. The car had reached the top of the hill. It was coasting before the drop. Dragging her left foot forward, she pulled herself into the driver's seat. The edge of the hill loomed. Handbrake, she thought to herself. Without looking, she pulled the lever of the manual handbrake. The rear wheels locked. The tyres screeched. The car stopped. It perched on the crest of the hill, just before the drop. She had done it. She turned in the driver's seat. Baby Anthony looked back at her, intensely. He looked like he was holding his breath. Viv was an expert video game driver. She had never driven a real car on the road. She was an expert motocross rider. She knew what a clutch was. She knew how to start an engine. She had backed the car up many times while getting set up at the track. She hit the start button. The engine roared to life. "All right," she heard herself shout. Still panting hard, she turned the wheel as far as it could go. The road was wide enough to turn the car around. She drove back up the road. Her sister had helped their father away from the rushing water. She looked miserable. A waterfall was roaring across the road above her. Fist-sized rocks littered the pavement. She pulled up alongside. She left the car running. Mr. Stevens could walk well enough to help them get him into the back seat. His forehead was drenched with blood. "Get us out of here, girls," he said, and put his head back. A rumble sounded. The ground shook. Viv and Sarah looked down the road towards the sound. They had to shield their eyes from the light. The road was gone. The water had washed it away. The edge of the asphalt road was cut as cleanly as butter. Beyond it was a wall of rainbow-coloured fog. Through the gaps in the fog, the girls could see a broad valley, a clear blue sky, red cliffs. The same image that had appeared in back of the car when they had escaped the storm at the top of the mountain. The rainbow fog was eating away at the road. The edge was coming closer and closer. They could not see how far a drop it was from the edge of the road to the mirage of the valley. "Viv, drive!" shouted Sarah. They took their seats and Viv slammed the car into drive. "Drive where?" shrieked Viv. "Up! Go!" Viv stomped the accelerator. The tyres screeched and grinded rocks and dirt and water. They sped uphill towards the waterfall. "Go for it, Viv!" shouted Sarah, and put her hand on the dash to steady herself. Both girls screamed as the accelerating car slammed into the waterfall. The water hit the windshield with a deafening thump. They could not see anything out the front windshield. Then, everything was quiet. The water ran off the windshield. They had to squint their eyes from bright sunlight streaming into the car. They were on the dry road heading up the mountain. Pine trees loomed overhead. The sun was still shining. The sky was clear. Viv still had her foot jammed onto the accelerator. The car revved loudly. "Ease down, Viv!" shouted Sarah over the noise. "Ease down!" Adrenaline was coursing through Viv's veins. She stopped the car in the middle of the road. She calmed herself. Steam rose from the hood of the car. She looked at Sarah. "Where are we?" she asked. "Looks like we're back on the mountain," said Sarah breathlessly. "What time is it?" "My watch is still dead, Viv, just like before." "Turn us around. We've got to get back down the valley. We've got to get Dad to a hospital." From the back seat, a series of beeps were sounding. "What's that? What now?" asked Viv nervously. "An alarm. Cell phone? It sounds like..." "It's the International Space Station app on my phone," said their father, groggily from the back seat. Accurate to 10 seconds. Can you see it? Said Sarah. The girls looked up through the windshield. There! Exclaimed Viv. The brightest object in the sky was flying towards the horizon over the valley. Viv turned the car around. They started down the mountain. The road was peaceful and perfect. The last rays of the sun were warm. They followed the twinkling space station down the road. The wind from the broken window dried their wet hair. Out of the corner of her eye, Sarah thought there was something strange about Viv. Sarah looked at Viv and blinked. A black streak had appeared in her long, blonde hair, like a ponytail, like a braid. What the... muttered Sarah in amazement. Is there mud in your hair? Could be. I'm trying to drive here. I could use your eyes on the road. There's something in your hair. Viv stole a quick glance at Sarah. My hair? Speak for yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Sarah flipped down the visor. She narrowed her eyes. She was silent for a moment. It's not mud. It's colour, Sarah said. In amazement, she curiously stroked her own braid of obsidian black hair. Epilogue. It was the year of the day star, in the summer of the twin sunsets. The spirits were restless. We should have known better. I have been a medicine man for many years. I have listened closely to the elders, but I had no knowledge of this. The white buffalo had riders, beings with yellow hair that shimmered like sunlight on the waters. The air would smell like dry smoke. The white buffalo and his rider trampled up and down the trail to the summer grounds. The grounds were high in the mountains. We would go there in the summer to escape the heat in the valley. The tribe had always gone there, since the time of the old ones. They had left many marks in stone to show us the way. We made marks that summer, new marks, to warn the future tribes, to tell the next medicine men. No one from the tribe had ever seen these lights in the evening sky. No one had seen the second sunset. No medicine man had seen the travelling star that flew across the night sky. I was a young man. I did what I could. I sang. I held the symbols of the tribe for the white buffalo to see, to let him know we were there, to help him move on to the spirit world, to go forward and return to his place. I could sense he was lost. I tried very hard to help him. I am not sure if I helped the white buffalo and the riders leave. I'm not sure if it was because of me that they left us in peace. I think it was the travelling star. The star flew across the sky like a bird. Perhaps they were following the star. A strange wind blew. It was like lighting wind. When lightning strikes, it smells. It blew my braids across my face. This was a sign. I knew I had to burn my hair. I took out the black glass knife. I cut my braids. The sacred glass knife is very sharp. It was easy to cut both braids. I have never cut my hair. I was never permitted. I became assistant to our great medicine man when I was but a child. I think the white buffalo and his rider left with the star. I think they followed the star. I burned my hair. The smoke was black and red. It smelled very strong. It made a very big cloud. The white buffalo ran through many times. Then it disappeared. We know the white buffalo and its riders went back to the spirit world. The smoke left on the wind. They say I am a great medicine man, but I do not know. The spirits decide these things. It is not for us to say. We do not go to those high grounds now. The stream has gone dry. The wheat does not grow high enough anymore. The mesquite pods are not as plentiful. The white buffalo paintings are still on the rocks. We made markings on the cliffs to let people know what happened, so that the white buffalo and the riders would know we were there and meant them no harm. The tribe is afraid of them. The tribe says the ground is holy, that it belongs to the white buffaloes and the riders, that we should not go. Perhaps one day we will return, when the weather cools, when the waters return to the high grounds. By then I will be an old man. My hair will be long again. We left the black knife in a place of honor at the high grounds, where the water runs, to clean it. The next shaman will need it. I look to the sky every night. I have not seen the travelling star again. I wait for the return of the white buffalo and its golden riders. This has been Escape from Witch Doctor Mountain. Written by Paul Beck. Narrated by Stuart Crank. Production copyright 2021, Trout Lake Media.